In today's video, I'm going to teach you what I learned from implementing the tools and skills taught in Daniel Priestley's book, Oversubscribed. Hi, and welcome back to the show. My name is Leruste, and I'm the founder and host of The Unconventionalist. Now, today I want to share with you as quickly and as briefly as I can the lessons I've learned from implementing the tools and strategies described in Daniel Priestley's book, Oversubscribed. Now, to give you a bit of context, earlier this year, on the 24th and 25th of January, Daniel Priestley and his team at Dent organized a campaign-driven enterprise workshop here in London. And Daniel, who's been on the show, and if you haven't seen the episode, the link's going to be below this video, so make sure to check it out, invited me to come and talk at his event. And I had the honor and privilege to be invited for the entire event, so I stayed around and I made so many notes that I filled out an entire Moleskine notebook. And I came out of that really buzzing with lots of ideas, and I wanted to actually test out and implement the things that we learned, because I think so many of us, learn these things or consume content or take courses and programs, but don't actually do anything to implement them. So I just wanted to see how could I implement the tools and strategies learned during those 2 days, which is basically based on Daniel Priestley's book, Oversubscribed. Now, I've written down a few notes to try and remember kind of how the course went so that you can better understand. But just so you know, what I was effectively trying to oversubscribe, if you wish, which is basically the principle of you have too many people for not enough products or service that you're delivering. So more people want what you have to sell or buy, right? Which is most unusual for businesses, because we're always trying to chase business and trying to make money and desperate for clients. Well, the whole philosophy of Oversubscribed is that you create a market, and the market gets excited about the product you're trying to launch or sell before you even sold or launched it, which is a bit based, I guess, on the Lean Startup Methodology by Eric Ries as well. But it's also based around take your 12-month and you base it into quarters, and you run campaigns and events to sort of sell into your business. And then also, if you haven't read Daniel Priestley's other book, How to Become a Key Person of Influence, where he talks about product ecosystem, I definitely recommend the read. Again, the links will be below this video. So the challenge was simple. I wanted to launch an accelerator program, an online accelerator program. Now, my oversubscribed would have been 10 to 12. I think I would have been really happy with 10 or 12 people, and that was kind of like the oversubscribed limit I was going for. And I decided that I would be launching it, I think, around the 28th of April. Now, it's easy for me to say this now because I could see the dates that I wanted to launch, but the truth is, when I started off, I wasn't really sure what the date. So that was lesson number one. Make sure that when when you're launching your product or your service, right? If it's an event, or if it's a program, or if it's a product you're launching, just know that what date you want to launch it, because you're going to have to work backwards in terms of how many weeks you've got, and you want to give yourself a leadway of minimum 6 weeks. I think that would probably be my best advice at this point. So on the 31st of January, so literally the week after I spoke at Daniel's events in London, I actually had a talk organized through Work.life, where they'd lent me the office space, and I ran an event called How to Start a Movement. And I run the tickets, if I remember, through Eventbrite and through meetup.com, but it was pretty much through Eventbrite. And so I had 30 tickets for that event. That was going to be oversubscribed. 15 people got tickets. I sold each ticket for £5, and 100% of all the money made went back to charity water. And I'm pretty sure I actually funded Daniel Priestley's campaign for his birthday. He was making a sort of a fundraising campaign for, I think it was charity water, for on his Facebook page. And so just to thank him to invite me to speak at his event, I actually donated all the money back to his fundraising campaign. So just in terms of numbers, all the tickets sold by Eventbrite was £90, and after Eventbrite took their commission, it was £76.40 left. And the funny thing is that actually, when I ran that event, 30 people showed up. And the reason being is that half the people in the room were in the wrong kind of place. I had briefly mentioned at that point that I was thinking about launching an accelerator, but I hadn't actually got content or material to show to anyone. All I did was a mock-up of the potential landing page of what my website might look like if people applied. And I kind of briefly talked about it. And this is something I've learned, which actually I was almost embarrassed of trying to sell the product I was trying to gear towards, which was really fascinating for me. Then I did a couple of events afterwards at General Assembly. I was speaking with Emma Gannon on the panel of the podcast Revolution. So I didn't really pitch actually the accelerator then. It was more kind of like having a chat with the audience and speaking to a few people afterwards. And then a few people, I forgot to say, at the first event at work.life came up to me at the end and were a bit interested about the accelerator, but kind of asking me, and I didn't have any assets. Big thing that Daniel Priestley talks about in his books is making sure you have assets, whether that's brochures or price ranges or program descriptions, things that you can show. And I just didn't really have that. I wasn't kind of ready. And then another big event I did is I hosted Chris Guillebeau at the Escape the City event in London with 500 people. And here's the biggest lesson I learned, people, is that I forgot to introduce myself. I forgot to say my name and I forgot to say what I did. So forget about pitching my accelerator program. I just even forgot to say that I'm the founder and host of The Unconventionalists. So that was like a massive aha moment for me. But the big, and I also run an event on the 9th of March for Funzing. They invited me, I went to speak. Again, I kind of give a presentation. I talked about how to turn your blog into a successful business. And I kind of weaved in a little bit the accelerator, but I wasn't really kind of talking about it. I peppered it in the newsletter, but to be fair, I didn't do a good enough job of making sure I was giving out regular content in the build up towards the launch of the accelerator. But the event I really want to talk to you about is that I actually organized my own events at Google Campus. Now, this took a bit of time to schedule with Google Campus to be able to run my own events. And I used Eventbrite and Meetup.com. I have a Meetup group to be able to sell tickets. And the event was called Storytelling for Startups. Now, at Google Campus, I was pretty much told that I could only have 75 people come into the event. So my maximum oversubscribed amount of people in the room was 75 people. Now, I'm not a big event organizer. I haven't done them since I was at uni. I used to have an event society. But I started panicking when I saw that over 100 tickets were being sold. And I say sold because you had to register and get a ticket, but it was free, right? It was completely free. People could come for free. 108 people, and I started panicking, going, oh my God, I'm totally oversubscribed. What if people show up at the event and they can't get into the venue? And I felt so bad, so I basically stopped the sales of tickets, and I thought that, I'm going to have to kick people out. Now, this is another huge lesson I learned. If you go to an event and you want 75 people there, you want to at least minimum double of that in tickets, in free tickets in Eventbrite, if not more. Because if you're lucky, if you get 40% of those total numbers that show up. And I think out of those 75 people who showed up, but out of the 108 tickets that were sold on Eventbrite, I reckon probably around like 40 people showed up, something like that, 30 to 40 people. But here's the fascinating thing. A couple of things happened. One of them is, what I forgot to mention again, is that at the work.life event that I did on how to start a movement, a fascinating thing happened at the end. First of all, two people came up to me separately saying that they were really keen to sort of find out more about the Unconventionalists and finding a bit more about my work. And, I mentioned that I'm starting off and I don't have a salary, I don't have money, but they were really keen. And that's Steph and Ben who came on board and was such a huge help. And I remember, one of the concepts of Daniel Priestley talks about building a team. One of the quickest things you need to do is to build a team around you. And so that was a fascinating process of seeing people wanting to help out. And again, on this event that I organized on Google Campus, Cloud came on board and helped out with the event, brought in a whole bunch of people who helped out, aka the Purple Emperors, so my old students that I was teaching out on an accelerator program. They all came together and they helped out. And it was an amazing thing. And so I did a whole Facebook Live. I gave a whole talk about the 7 steps of using storytelling as a tool to grow your business. And one of the amazing things that happened is actually, and I've got my numbers down, out of that first talk, 4 people applied to the accelerator coming out of that. So let's say there's 40 people showed up, 4 people applied. So you're looking at about 10% of the people that showed up ended up applying on the accelerator program, which was really amazing. And then I had another event that I had scheduled a little bit later on April the 11th. The Google Campus one, by the way, was towards the end of March. It was the 29th of March. And then on the 11th of April, Startup Direct invited me to come and give a talk at WeWork. So I gave a whole talk about storytelling for startups again. And out of that, 1 person applied to the actual program. So I had 5 people apply through the kind of events that I've done. I had 1 person apply through having attended the actual event at Dent, the campaign-driven enterprise. An amazing guy called Aaron. If you don't know him, make sure to go and check him out, Aaron O'Sullivan. And so he actually introduced me to his sister, who was an amazing candidate, an amazing participant that came on the tribe. And so there was this really fascinating thing that, the more events I did, the more likely I would have people applying. So once people applied, they would then get an hour of a strategy session with me where I talk more about what the program is, making sure they're the right fit for the program. And then if the right fit, I would then send them the details on what to do next to sort of secure their payment. So just full transparency, I was really worried actually that I wouldn't be able to sell anyone on my program. So I put the early bird price ticket was £500, I think for like the first 3 or 4 people who signed up, and then it was £750. And what happened is that I also gave a scholarship away. Just because I wanted to be able to support someone coming on the program. And so I ended up having, oh yeah, and I forgot about this. There was another friend who also introduced me to someone else. He applied, but then he kind of pulled out. In the end, I had 6 paying people that came onto the program and 1 person that came on scholarship. So I had 7 people in total. I was aiming for 10. I would have loved to have 12. So I was not oversubscribed. But what I did learn is that there is an amazing magic in actually scheduling your prime events towards the launch of your product or your service. And that there is truth in actually creating an environment where people can see other buyers and get excited about the idea of buying. And if there's only a limited amount of places, or there's only a limited amount of supply, then 100% that works in your favor. The huge thing is organizing your own events. I know it sounds silly. It's great to leverage other people's communities, but by far my return was the highest when I ran my own events. And the reason being is not only can I control every assets on the environment of the event, but you own the communication with the participants. And now, what do I mean by that? Effectively, if you run an event for someone else, or you go and speak at someone else's event, yeah, sure, you can speak to people there, and you've got different methods to try and interact with people and maybe get people's emails and so forth, but you don't have access to that mailing list. Whereas Eventbrite was by far the fastest and cheapest user acquisition I've ever come across. I spent 0 dime in promoting the Eventbrite event, and I got 108 people sign up to the event. That means that I had 108 emails of potentially hot leads of people interested in the work I did that I could then email and follow up with. And so by far my biggest lesson is organize your own events and do it by Eventbrite, because you get to have people's emails that you can keep on communicating. I think I did a lot of mistakes. I basically rushed too many events one after the next, and I didn't take the time to really kind of go, we're going to get one event 6 weeks before, and then we're going to schedule the sales calls following that event and making sure we lock everybody else. The other big mistake I made is people who told me they were interested, I let that kind of linger on. I didn't, send them the payment details. I didn't, because I was a bit worried at first if I wasn't going to sell all the programs, to be honest. So that was another thing, is as soon as someone says yes, make sure to make the sell. But it was a real exciting experience, actually, I guess, to sort of implement some of the stuff that I learned through the book and through the event, which I really recommend you go and attend if you're in London. As always, it's super rich in information, but it's nothing if you don't implement it. I think if I'm going to do it again, actually, I'm going to definitely use some of these sort of tools and strategies for my next launch. And what I will do is I will focus on probably 1 big event, or maybe 2 big events, but most likely on 1 big event, fill out as much as possible that 1 event, and then be really clear about actually what the outcome of the program is and how to get involved, and spend more time selling it as opposed to feeling awkward to selling it. But that's a whole different video. So I hope that was helpful. If you've got any questions about what I did or parts of the implementation process of the book Oversubscribed or the Campaign Driven Enterprise workshop that we attended, let me know in the comments below. Post and I'll do my best to reply to that. And I hope that was helpful. Really, again, Dan, thanks so much for inviting me to come and talk at your amazing event. And it was really exciting to implement some of your strategies into practice and see what worked for me and where I fell short and what I would do differently next time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.